Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Tip Tuesday. Glad to have you with us, either joining us live or watching this recording. We are starting a new series, if you will, and this is about running the race. Obviously, I'm going to be talking about physically running, uh, but our primary purpose will be focused on running the race of trading. So, how do we begin to think through the training process, um, the perseverance process, and also the mental aspect of running and the why behind it? And that's actually going to be our focus today. So, if you are like me, you don't like running. I do not like to run. My family runs a 5K every November. It's a newish type tradition. We've been doing it for 4 or 5 years now, maybe more. And we do this every year. And so basically, I start training normally a few months out just so I can do it because it's about 3.2 miles basically. And so I start training, it's like half a mile, then I try to work up to a mile and a half, 2 miles. I rarely ever run more than two miles. I'm like, hey, if I've made it this far, I'll pray and I'll trust that with all those thousands of people around me, I'll be able to make it the extra mile or whatever. But I never enjoy it. I just sit out there and I guess I can't really figure out what to do while I'm out there. And I just keep thinking about the finish line. Like I just like, how far to the finish line? How far do I get to the finish line? And goals are really important for us as traders. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about the why behind your trading. Uh, we would prefer that nobody that really starts this journey quits this journey until they reach a reasonable place. So, in other words, if we were out in California and we decided we're going to move to Florida and we started that journey, and then all of a sudden we just kind of said, hey, we're in Colorado. There are mountains here, and uh, that's fine. Let's just settle here. Okay, but now you're looking around going, yeah, but there's no beach. You say, all right, well, let's go. And you just keep going a little bit further east, and then you get to Texas. And you're like, wow, all right. They have some like hilly areas, like they call them mountains. And look, there's some places down there that are beaches. Wow. So this is pretty much Florida. Like this is it. Let's just stop right here. And and you just settle in there because you just get satisfied with where you are. You can do that, but that wasn't really your destination. That wasn't really your goal. And the reason that you did that is because the why was not important enough to drive you at some point. And so you find that you might end up quitting this thing simply because you really just forget the why, or you just get tired. All right. So let's talk a little bit about why our why is so important. What is your why? So first off, let's kind of talk a little bit about that. What is the reason why we are trading? So at some point in your life, you decided, I want to try to become a trader. And I'm going to assume that when you did make this decision, that you made an investment in this and you said, all right, I'm going to commit to it. So what does that commitment look like? Well, that means I'm going to spend some money. That means I'm going to have to spend some time. And that means I'm going to have to get some education. And then I've got to go out there and put all this together. So you are making a commitment in a number of ways to do that. Now, what you have to ask yourself is, what happens when things get tough? When things aren't really going my way, when I'm not making the progress that I feel like I should make in the time period that I had set up for myself, whether or not it was realistic or not. It's just I'm not reaching my goals. I'm not getting there fast enough. Now, guys, if we're on a real trip with our family and we're not getting there fast enough, we don't just say, you know what, guys, forget it. Let's just turn around. We don't do that, right? We keep going. We might pull over, we might take a little break, or in some cases, we might just speed up, right? That might help us get there faster too. We might just say, everybody, put your headphones on, go to sleep, take a nap, whatever. But we're going forward. We're going to continue this journey. Why? Because we're committed to the end. We're committed to the why, guys. So your why has to be so overwhelmingly important that it would be enough to carry you through difficulty. And you say, Geoffrey, what if it's just monetary? What I have found is if your goal is just monetary, it's not enough. It's not enough, guys, right? So our why can't just be a money thing. It can't just be tied to, oh, I'm going to make X amount of dollars a month, or I'm going to have X amount of dollars in my account. It's got to be something more than that. It's got to be tied to something greater. So what I would encourage you is to think deeper than just a monetary goal. I think monetary goals are really, really important, but I think we need to think deeper than that. If it's really going to motivate us, if it's really going to drive it, it's got to be deeper than just monetary, right? So what might that look like? Well, I want to do this. What is that? What is that thing? So I want to do this. If you repeated that phrase in your mind, you said, I want to do this, what follows that? Because that is likely something that's going to motivate you. So you say to yourself, all right, what's something I would do if I had more money? Now we are tying money to a thing. And what I would encourage you is not just tie it to a thing, though that might be important. Hey, I'm going to buy a car. I'm going to buy a truck. I'm going to buy a boat. I'm going to buy a house. I'm going to buy whatever. Cool. That's amazing. That's motivation. What I would say is really the next step in that motivation is to not tie it to a thing, but to tie it to an experience or a purpose. What do I mean by that? If you were to say, wow, if I made this amount of money, here's what I could do with it. And now you start to think of how it might impact someone else, either directly or indirectly. To me, that is extra motivation, because now it's not just about me reaching a goal, because that's still about me. But when I start to think about my why, and my why involves other people, that tends to motivate, right? So if you say, well, I'm going to go to the gym. Okay. All right. So initially, you just got to get up. You just got to show up. You got to go. You got to be consistent. And then at some point, you got to say, wow, who is this benefiting? Because it's mainly just benefiting me. Unless you can somehow tie a reason to say, oh, I'm doing this because I want to be healthy enough to see some grandkids. I want to be healthy enough to play with my grandkids, to be able to get down on the field with them, to be able to walk to their games, to go on vacation with them. So I'm now that motivation is not just about you. It's tied to a person. It's tied to an experience. And what I have found is that when we tie motivation to experience, when we tie motivation to other people, we have a tendency not only to desire that thing more, but to be more committed to doing that thing, even if it becomes difficult. So what I would encourage you guys to do is when you're defining your why, figure out, yes, it should be monetary. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a big part of what we're doing, right? It's monetary, yes. But what's greater than that? What's beyond that? What is it tied to? Is it an experience? Is it a trip? Hey, I'm going to take my whole family or my spouse, and we're going to go do this trip that my spouse has dreamed about going on for 20 years. If I can reach this goal, we're going to go on that trip. You think that will motivate you? I suspect it would, right? Because now you're not going to sit there and go, man, let me just see how this goes. I mean, you're going to be like, and I've seen people do this. They literally just posted a picture up like on their computer of where they were wanting to go. So anytime they felt like that motivation was waning, they'd look at that picture. It would remind them of their why. And then they'd be like, all right, let's go. Let's do this. I'm committed to this. So if that's you, if that's what it takes to motivate you, cool, do it. Find it. All right. Find your why, but tie it to something beyond yourself. Tie it to something greater than you. You say, Geoffrey, I would like to give to, some missionaries. I'd like to support some ministries at my church. Man, you talk about tying that to something greater than you. I mean, how can I further God's kingdom through this trading stuff? That ought to motivate us, right? How can I be a part of God's kingdom? How can I be using my physical talents? So the biblical talent is money, right? How can I use my money, my talent of money? But then also, how can I use my talent of knowledge and whatever God's gifted me with to actually do something with this as well that would go beyond me? We talk about this at step one a lot, that we ought to leave an inheritance for our children's children. Guys, most people are just trying to make it, right? They're just trying to make it from one month to the next. Well, I can assure you, you're not leaving an inheritance for your children, let alone your children's children, if we're just still trying to make it from one month to the next. So at some point, our motivation may be like, I want to fulfill that. I want to know what that's like. I want to get to a place where I can be like, yeah, I am literally leaving money for my grandkids. And enough to where they would be like, wow, that's a, huh, we're sorry to see granddad go, but thanks, granddad. Like, I can go buy a house with that amount of money. Like, I can go do a car. I can like set myself up. I can be in a position where I would not have been if it weren't for you. Now, all of a sudden, guys, you think that won't motivate you to be thinking about your grandkids and what you can do for them and maybe an experience you could have with them? Because ultimately, guys, right, everything we have is going to be somebody else's. That's the reality. That's a sobering reality. The only stuff that we have that's ours are the treasures that we lay up in heaven because they last for eternity. And that's why the Bible says, lay up for yourselves treasure in heaven where moth and rust do not destroy and thieves don't break in and steal. So whatever our motivation is, ultimately it ought to be a heavenly, a kingdomly motivation because that's what really matters. So the things that we do here that translate up to there, because that's what lasts forever. These things are temporary, which is why I would say experiences are so important. The things that we do with the people that we love, that's part of what makes this important. And then whatever we can do for the kingdom, that's just even better, right? So doing stuff with family is great. Doing stuff for the kingdom, if it includes your family, awesome. Okay. But let's define our why. All right. And so when things get tough or when things are going slower than we would think, what motivates us to keep going? And what I found also, guys, if you don't have this, find it. Find this. Find somebody that is aligned with your dreams and goals. Find somebody to support you. Now, ideally, that would be a spouse or somebody close to you. But if it's not, go find somebody. Find somebody. Find somebody to support you because you are going to need times when you need somebody else to come alongside you to encourage you. Now, we have the community site, and that's great too. But I would say find somebody that's even closer to you, somebody that you can really share your dreams with, somebody that you can share your frustrations with, but somebody that's going to ultimately motivate you and say, no, keep going. Because I know some of you guys are in a tough spot. You've got a spouse that's not supportive. I think that's one of the hardest things to do is to have a spouse that's not supportive of what you're doing. So, when you're going through difficult times, when you're struggling, when you've had some expenses pile up and you're kind of like, how are you doing? And you just almost want to say to them, don't even ask. I'll let you know later, Find somebody to support you. All right. Because this is hard, right? Trading is hard sometimes. When trading is easy, it's fun. It's just like amazing, right? Because you're just like out there and you're making money, you're meeting your goals, and it's like, what? Throw a big party. We don't really need a lot of support when that's happening because the internal motivation is already there, right? The external motivation, we're seeing the money coming in, we're thinking about all this stuff. It's like when we go through those tough times, when we kind of get bogged down, right? When we have the flat tires on our journey, then we need somebody else to come out there with us, maybe do something with us to encourage us, or maybe, help us lift that tire up and put the new one on and get going again and remind us, hey, you're off a little bit. It's no biggie. All right, we're going to get there in God's time anyway. So let's just keep going. Let's keep moving. You're doing great. You need somebody like that. So if you don't have somebody like that, go find that person in your life. Figure out your why, guys. So before we meet next week, figure out your why. I want each of you to have your why. Why is trading a thing to me? Why is it a thing to me? Why is it important to me? Why am I willing to commit to trading? What do I think trading could do for me? And then what kind of path am I on? And how close am I to reaching my goals? And how motivated am I at this current time? And do I have somebody to come alongside me and support me in this journey? That's our tip for today, guys. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next time.